Today on Nova Legends podcast, I have Riverside Lacrosse coach Nick Worek, who's unbelievably won 6 of the last 7 state championships in Class 5 here at Riverside High School. Coach, great to meet you. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited. I've watched a couple of the podcasts and it really well done show, and I'm excited to be on.
Oh well, thanks for saying that. You your record is more than worthy. Your record is so good, people might think you're putting them on when you tell them how many you've won. But let me give your background first. Like me, you're a Fairfax native. You went to Fairfax. I went to Robinson. I'm sure probably 20 years after me at Fairfax. You played football, basketball, and lacrosse there. Played lacrosse at VMI. Your wife Brittany, who helped you set up there, I just told on you. She also teaches with you at Riverside. I forgot what you teach, Coach.
So I'm the health and PE department chair here at Riverside. And then my wife did teach math, but now she's our instructional facilitator of technology. So this is kind of her wheelhouse with the technology part. So
Oh, she did a super job. You're looking spiffy there. You got twins, I believe, Zach and Kyle.
yep.
When you got into coaching, you went to Chantilly first. You won a state championship as an assistant. Also, you were state runners-up, and then you had a 36-101 record as a JV coach. You went to TJ. You were smarter than all the kids that you coached there because you were Liberty Coach of the Year, and you did well there. Turned that program around. Went to McLean. You were Coach of the Year in 2013. Won the Liberty. That's a very good lacrosse conference. I know Yorktown is very good, and other Washington Liberty has some players as well. Then you came to Riverside, undefeated, I believe, your second year, and won a state championship, Coach of the Year, district coach, regional coach, state coach of the year. You've done that a few times, actually, more than a few times. You got runner up the next year, and then you've been on a tear. If you leave the COVID year aside, the last 5 state championships you won right in a row, which is pretty much amazing. Coach, did I get most of that right?
Yes. Oh, 100%. Thank you for looking at that stuff. And it's always kind of nice to sit back and reflect. It gets so busy all the time to look back on that. It's kind of fun, and been in it for a while. So
Yeah. Well, I just interviewed Coach Dick Adams, who's a legendary coach in Northern Virginia. I'm sure you know him.
very
And
well.
yeah, the thing, Coach Adams won 2 state championships in the middle of his career at Annandale. And as you probably know, that demographic changed. So it's a very tough football demographic because you have a lot of immigrant families they're not football first families, and it takes a while to. It's just a different thing when you're coaching at Annandale. So I asked him, was it hard for him after winning 2 state championships not to be contending for state championships? His goals were to win the district, or just sometimes just have a winning year, sometimes just improve the kids and make them love football and send them off on their way. As a guy who's won 6 state championships, do you think the only way you can be fulfilled is to win a state championship? Could you be a kind of coach that just improves their kids, gets the team to play as well as they can?
That's a great question. When we first won it, everybody's like, well, the toughest thing is to win another one. So that was kind of the challenge, right? It's like, okay, well, let's try to win another one. And the year following the first state championship, we actually lost against Dominion in a great game at home. Stadium was packed to the top, and we lost a close one. And so that kind of everybody kept talking about, going back to back is really tough. And I was like, man, I guess everybody's right, And so the staff, looked at after that season and what do we need to change, self-reflected a little bit. And we changed some ways that we did things. And then we felt like we found a really good formula. And that's what kind of started this run. But to say that, winning is everything to fulfill, kind of a season, I don't know if that's so much the case anymore with me. I know the players probably feel that way to an extent. There's a lot of pressure around the building. Good pressure, everybody cheers us on and wants us to be successful and ask, oh, are you guys going to win it again this year? But, I feel like the kids feel that pressure a little bit, that it's their job to do that each year. And so we try to kind of keep smaller goals in mind. Being a good person, following our core values, accountability, integrity, and toughness. And if they can equate that to their lives, for me as a coach, that's a successful season, right? For them, maybe not. They want to win, and if they put all that to it, they have a good chance of setting themselves up for it.
Yeah. Well, Coach, I just moved out here to Lansdowne last
Oh,
year.
nice.
Yeah, my oldest over here in Catch Flight, so I'm real close to the school. My older kids went to Yorktown; they're in college now, and I have a sophomore now at Riverside. And we love the community. It's been great out here. First thing we were told was it's not a football school; it's a lacrosse school, which was interesting because I have a daughter who's not into sports, even though she cheered uh, last year. What makes a lacrosse school? Now, I'd imagine wealthy schools probably have a little bit of advantage. Loudoun has pretty lax placement rules. And if you commit to a school early in your career, you can go school. So kids will find the good programs and good coaches and stuff. But why Riverside? I mean, obviously you're a good coach, but why is Riverside so good?
That's a great question. I had no clue about this area really. Like you said earlier, I'm a Fairfax guy. Fairfax High School. I was a fighting rebel back then, and my parents still live in Fairfax. They're lifelong educators. My brother still teaches in Fairfax, and so I didn't know about Loudoun. I thought Loudoun was like on the other side of the world, and I need to get a passport to go through customs to get out here. And ran into Mr. Anderson. Unfortunately, at a funeral for a family friend, and he, we're just in catching up, said, well, do you want to come out to Riverside and open up a new school with me? And I was like, maybe, let me give you a call. So I called him. He said, well, we would like you to be the department chair. And I was probably 5-6 years into my career. I'm like, Mr. Anderson, I don't know about that. He goes, okay, well, thanks for the call. I hung up for 3 minutes, and I was like, no, I'm going to call back. That's a great opportunity. So in coming out here, I really didn't know about the community or anything. And I remember I was coaching at McLean, and we were playing Stonebridge High School. And it was one of the best games, high school lacrosse games that I've ever coached in, one of the best. And we're playing them that night, and we end up winning in triple overtime, 4-3. And they went on to win the state title that year in 5A. And it was a great game. College level players all over the field. But before the game, Matt Oblas, our AD, called me and was like, well, Coach, you're watching the JV game. And he's like, Coach, that's your that's your future team right there. I was like, no way. And I seen these guys play, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm coming into something pretty special. So when I got here, I was coaching football actually the first 2 years here, being a former football guy, and my dad being a football coach forever, and my brother. And so I saw that athlete here, and we have the great athletes here at school. And so, I was very excited, and then I saw the talent on the field, and I'm like, man, we could really do something. And that talent has just kept coming. The neighborhoods that feed here are Lansdowne, Belmont Country Club, and that's more of a wealthy area, as you know. And because of that, lacrosse is more of a wealthy sport. And so when you have those opportunities growing up to play, I think it just kind of breeds that lacrosse player. The other great part is that I'm in the building. So being a ninth grade PE teacher for some of my sections, I'm able to kind of recruit a little bit around the building. I see a kid that might be a good basketball player in class. I'm like, hey, what are you doing in the spring? Nothing really. I was like, why don't you come out and play lacrosse? I'm not sure. I said, don't worry about it. Come on out. We'll teach you. They come out, and we've had some great success stories there. Adam Huffnagel, Joey Weiss, never played lacrosse before. First team All-State. They're hanging on the wall, just some great athletes that we've gotten to come out and play that were just around the building. So we've been lucky with the neighborhoods feeding here. And you're right, around Loudoun County, kids can kind of, coming into high school, choose a little bit where they go. We actually have never had any of that. Maybe one player we had who was a role player early in our success was somebody who lived outside of our area, but our school only had about 800 kids in it at that point. So, he chose to come here when we opened the school. Other than that, all of our college-bound players, everybody, they all lived in our neighborhoods that feed here to Riverside. So we've just been really lucky to have some great players.
Yeah. Well, Coach, Fairfax High School, I think, was probably opened around 1930. Maybe it was a different Fairfax High School, but it's been around a long time.
Yeah.
What is it like to build your own culture at a high school? You don't have all those. So I went to Robinson, and it's eighth or ninth year opened. Maybe no, the fifth year was opened. So all the traditions and cultures, we were building them, and
Yeah.
the heroes that we had, we kind of overemphasized them because that's all we really had. Like we had Mike Tissall, a legendary basketball player, Greg Dennis. We had football players, Todd Kirtley, Kranitzky, Ed Henry, the legendary coach.
Yeah.
They were at Robinson. So we're about the same time Riverside is now, maybe a little bit later. So what is it like to build your own traditions and cultures and success at high school?
It's super fun. Well, first of all, the administration here is incredible. Mr. Anderson is the best principal I've ever worked for. He just the way he presents himself around the building and makes it a great, welcoming environment for everybody. And then our athletic administration with Mr. Oblas giving me all the resources I need to be successful, and always saying yes when I bring a question or something, and saying, yeah, let's see what we can do, has allowed us to be able to build a culture of success. And if you don't have that support, sometimes that's really hard to do. And throughout my career, I've been really lucky with Jim Patrick at McLean, and Mr. Sean DeRose at Thomas Jefferson, and Ellen Riley, and the principals that I've had. And I've always had that support, and it makes it really easy to build a culture. But it is fun, right? We get to create our own jerseys, and we try to say here that we like to be like Oregon, right? Oregon football, we don't wear the same combination twice, just kind of our thing. And the kids embrace that stuff. They really like it. Winning helps, right? So, when you win, some of those things culture wise that you say are important ring true, and they follow it, and they accept it, and they can see that it does make a difference in the culture of the program. So
yeah. Well, our main man, Coach Porter, is building that football program. Hopefully he'll get to where you are. He's a great guy. Is it helpful that the football team has struggled a little bit because the kids tend to focus on lacrosse? Or could you be firing on both barrels? Like at Robinson, the lacrosse team was great, and the football team had been great up until the last couple of years. Does it matter if the football team is successful? Could that be a distraction?
I'm glad you brought that up. We are huge proponents of multiple sport athletes in the lacrosse program. As I said, we try to recruit multiple sport athletes to come out and play lacrosse. I was a multiple sport athlete, played football, basketball until I stopped growing in high school. Average height after a while that catches up to you on the hardwood. And then lacrosse, and my assistants, all football guys. My brother was a fantastic football player. He's our defensive coordinator, played football in college. Dave Baguetta, our offensive coordinator, longtime coach, actually at Robinson, also in South County, was an all-region football player. Coached football forever. I coached football. Coached football here. My dad was a head football coach at Langley and Madison and McLean for years and years. We want that multiple sport athlete. I want my guys playing football. I think that there's a toughness level there. There's, a camaraderie that you learn going through a football season, and really challenging yourself that way. And I don't know if there's anything better than playing on Friday nights in front of a crowd and everybody in the fall. So I would rather my guys play multiple sports than just focus on lacrosse. And I say that to them all the time. So, anything that Coach Porter or myself can do to help Coach Porter's program build, I want to do. And he knows that. And we've talked a lot. And, trying to build both programs up. I sent a note out to all the coaches here for the other programs, just saying how much I want everybody to be successful. And we have some really successful programs here: basketball and volleyball, and softball just won the state title, and baseball. Coach Plank in my office does a great job with that program, and was a coach of the decade last decade. And all the programs are developing here and growing, and we want football to be that same dominant force, and I think they will be. It takes time.
He's such a great guy.
Yes,
Now tomorrow is homecoming,
yeah.
and homecoming is awesome here. They have a little parade that goes around the community, they close the community. It's something, it's so unique. It reminds me of a small town somewhere. My daughter, was in the march as a cheerleader last year. It was so special. Does any part of you wishes that you could have like a homecoming for the lacrosse season and kind of do that same thing? Because there is you do get a lot of support for lacrosse.
Yes, I think so, but yeah, that's a tradition thing for the fall and football, and I exactly what you were saying. It's such a cool atmosphere walking around the neighborhood. We're in a unique space, much like Yorktown, really, where the school's in the middle of the neighborhood, and that doesn't happen all the time. So, yeah, I love how they do that here with the parade, and we'll bring my boys out tomorrow, Zach and Kyle, and we'll sit out there, and they'll be throwing candy as they come by. They love it. So, but yeah, I think homecoming, let's keep it in the fall for the football team and those fall sports, and we'll keep the spring.
Yeah. One of the brilliance of Lansdowne is most schools now, they put big fences around the school grounds. So any walk into the school is a 15-minute walk.
Yeah.
Riverside, Lansdowne, there's no fences anywhere. Wherever you are, you can just walk, you can just beeline right from the school. It's an awesome way to design a school community. Whoever did that, or maybe they were saving money on the fences, but I'm so glad the way they design it. It makes that kind of atmosphere so special. Now you mentioned 2-sport athletes, and you were a 3-sport athlete. How many of your kids, your starters or your serious players, play 2 or 3 sports?
I think we've seen a trend where early when they come here, they're playing multiple sports. Some of our really good players, by the time they get to their junior or senior year, I think it becomes a little bit much and they get a little burnout. And I don't think that that's the case due to playing the sports in-house here at Riverside, being a Riverside Ram. I think it has a lot to do with the club aspect. So, our really good players, they play all summer on high-level club teams and travel all over the country. And they're constantly getting, going to showcases and things like that. And that goes into the fall too. So I think that plays a bigger part in it than here in the schoolhouse. Something that didn't exist back when you and I played, right? We didn't have those club aspects. There was AAU basketball, but was it as big as it is now? I don't think it was, or it is. There definitely wasn't club lacrosse back when I played. There was maybe one team that they would, put together in the summer and go to a tournament. But now it's just such a big market. Soccer, same way, they play all summer and all fall, and then when they get to the spring, they have their high school season. I think that's what's really hurting that multiple sport athlete is the club stuff.
Yeah.
Basketball, you can say the same thing. Swimming. I mean, all these sports require so much outside of the school. That's, I think, affecting it more than anything.
Yeah. Do you enjoy coaching club lacrosse as well?
So I stopped.
Okay.
I coached for a few years, and when it first started coming out around this area, I kind of jumped in, and my wife, she's saying, it might be a little too much. And I started seeing that too. Going to these fields in the summer when it's 150 degrees outside, and you don't have that team aspect in club lacrosse. It's a little bit different. Kids are out there, they're trying to get seen by college coaches. They're trying to put on their best individual performance, maybe not so much playing team lacrosse. And that kind of got to the point where I was like, I think I'm just going to stick to the high school stuff. And so for the past, 8 years or so, I've kind of stayed out of it. Now this summer I did coach the New Balance All-American team out of the Washington D.C. area. It's a great event run by New Balance. It used to be run by Under Armour, and it's held at in the Baltimore area, but it's regional, so teams from all over the country come and compete in a weekend, and it was really fun to work with those guys and get to coach kids from around the area that are in private and public schools, and had a great time doing that. So
Yeah. Well, you're from Fairfax like me, and you coach. I coach some AAU and summer league. Nowhere serious like you coach, but how do you compare the sports community in Loudoun and Fairfax? I'm of the belief it should be one community. I think it's this class 5 and class 6, even though the schools in Loudoun are a little bit smaller. I find it distracting and annoying. I would love to see you play Robinson in lacrosse, and I would love to see Stonebridge have to play this year Hayfield or whatever in football. But how would you compare the sports communities of Loudoun and Fairfax, Arlington?
yeah, and you know how the VHSL works. It's based off the population of the school, right? And that's how they classify, D5, D6, or 5A, 6A, whatever, 4A. And I kind of agree with you. I think especially like a sport like lacrosse, where there is a region, down in that southwestern part of the state that doesn't necessarily play lacrosse. I think that they should just make it everyone that plays. Let's put it all into one boat and see what happens. I know states like Pennsylvania, that's kind of, they do that a little bit, and more so, they even play the private schools. They're in the mix to win a state title. So
Awesome.
that would be a fun experience, I think. And I agree, we would love to compete in the playoffs against some of those 6A teams, the Langleys, Yorktown, Coach Beer there, Madison and Coach Solomon. And so we try our best at Riverside to schedule the best to the most we can do. We have to play our conference opponents. And then outside of that, we got about 5 or 6 games we can play with and try to schedule. And so this coming season, we're really excited. We're going to be playing Landon School up in Bethesda, which I believe they finished 11th in the country last year. So we're really excited about that opportunity. We'll be playing Christ Church School from down in the Piedmont area or the Tidewater area. We'll be playing St. Christopher's from Richmond.
Yeah.
Madison is a regular season game for us this year. We're scrimmage Robinson and Battlefield again. So we're really trying to stretch out and grow and play some of those bigger schools, because our kids love doing that. They get excited about those big games.
Yeah, I have a feeling that the Riverside Lacrosse and Riverside Soccer are going to be beating a lot of the Class 6 and higher level teams, because they're also stacked. Coming back next year as well. Now, I would think you guys would probably lose a few less players to private school here than you would if you're a little bit closer to the city. If I'm a player from Arlington, McLean, there's probably 10 really nice options within 20-minute drive. Here at Paula 6, I understand is really good, but you don't have as many teams that can take your players. Is that correct?
Oh yeah. I mean, when I was at McLean, that was what the players would always say, like, Coach, if we had everybody that's supposed to be here, nobody would beat us, like, because they'd be like, we got 3 guys at Gonzaga, we got 2 at Landon, we have, 6, and so that was always the joke. And Langley's in the same boat. That if they had everybody that they should have, they probably would never lose. But you're right. We live far enough outside of the city that, it becomes like, okay, well, are we going to spend half of our day driving and commuting to school every day? Or do we come to Riverside where they're still producing college level players and have relationships with those college coaches and they're winning? And so, that has kept a lot of the players here at Riverside. And I think they start to see that too. And they start to tell their friends, hey, there's no reason to go to the private schools. You have great coaching here. I truly believe my staff from top to bottom is, one of the best in the entire state, if not the best in the state. I would put us up against anybody from a coaching staff standpoint. Some of the minds that we have, those guys are just tremendous. And so that's what the player starts thinking about. It's like, well, why would I do that? And we've been really lucky to keep them. I know that there might be a few that go. Georgetown Prep has an unbelievable attackman by the last name Han. He's one of the top recruits in the country. He lives right here in Lansdowne. So I would love if he would decide to come back, but he's getting a great education at Prep and is playing some really high level lacrosse. So
Yeah, but he's in traffic every day, and we're not. So, you know, there's that. Now in lacrosse, and coach, you got to excuse me, I don't know much about lacrosse.
Yeah.
This is my second lacrosse interview after Matt Curran, and when I started that conversation, he's like, "It's about time you got in touch with me." Both being Robinson guys, but in football, basketball, great teams have distinctive styles. Like the Freedom team, the football team had a distinctive style. Any great football team, they're identified by their style of play, and it's the same in basketball generally, but basketball can change up. Do you have that in lacrosse? Do teams have a distinct style?
Yeah.
That's how Riverside plays.
Yeah. Well, first, I hope you come out to watch us play this spring.
Absolutely, I can't
Come
wait.
by and check us out. Say hi.
Yeah,
Yes, very distinct, different styles. It's actually much like basketball, the game. I always say my brother is our defense coordinator, and he never played lacrosse. He was a basketball, football guy. So he was an all-region basketball player. Chantilly played football, took them to a state title as a quarterback, and he brings that basketball aspect into the way we do things. And so our style is very much basketball based on defense. On offense, our offense coordinator, Dave Bagetta, I learned this system from him. We coached together at Chantilly when I first started coaching, and he's tremendous mind of the game, and he brings more of a football style of the way to call things to the game, where it's very calculated, and we have certain rules and things that we do, and it's drilled into the players, and it's like clockwork. And so very two different styles within our team, right? It's interesting how we kind of have merged that and made that work. But yeah, our style, when we first came here, we were young. We didn't have any seniors. So our style was, bring it down the field, grind it out, take long possessions, wear the clock down, and then score. Then when those kids started growing up and we had, some unbelievable players in that 2017 team, the 2019 team, those attackmen, Maltz and Musa and Pelkey, we said, it's time to kind of let them out a little bit. And so we started running and gunning a little bit, fast breaks, early offense, pushing transition up and down the court. And we got a lot of miles off of that. Now we're more of a hybrid. We like to push when we can, but we can also settle in if we need to. So I think it changes over time. I know it's the same as football. You have Mickey Thompson, who ran the single wing forever, right?
absolutely.
And he's had to change over time. I remember coaching against him in football when we were at McLean and having to. We really changed the way we played defense because you couldn't sub. They wouldn't huddle and they'd be out in the single wing, and then the next play they're in 5 wide. So you had to change the way you call defenses and create a hybrid style defense. And so it's very similar in our sport.
Yeah. Quick quiz for you, coach, just to see if you really know what you're talking about here. How would you describe the Robinson style of play?
Well, I haven't seen them play in a while now.
Okay.
They were a wing T team for a really long time.
Yeah.
And I'm an old wing T quarterback. So
okay. No, I was talking about lacrosse, coach.
Oh, lacrosse. I'm sorry. I thought we were on football. You can tell how much I like football.
No, they were a wing T. You're right. Absolutely. With Coach Hilbert, they were a wing T.
Oh,
absolutely
yeah.
Right.
The Robinson style, they're run and gun, man. They like to go. And they have the horses to do it. That's for sure. Coach Curran does a great job. That's probably one of our favorite scrimmages. I'm so glad we scrimmage them every year. And we always talk back and forth that it gets both of our teams ready to go. Because there are a little bit, the same style of play. They're big, athletic. They always carry a large roster. They're physical, and it kind of gets our guys ready too for challenging games early in the season. So Oh yeah, they like to come at you and bring it. On defense, they press out. They'll pressure you all over the field, so you need to be able to handle pressure early in the year.
It's funny because if you don't understand lacrosse, it'd be hard to imagine all those nuances, but you just rattle them off. Matt, who I just met, even though they knew me because I guess I used to work camps when they were young. But his brother Nick's son plays over at Independence. Bobby, off to a great start this year. Shout out to those guys. Now, how much would you say coaching impacts lacrosse? If I have to give wrestling a 10 out of 10, because wrestling Robinson, as you know, at Epperly, you get the kids in, it's big school, but it's all about technique and coaching and the right program. And coaching has such a huge impact on your success. Basketball, I'd probably give a 5 or 6. Coaching is very important, but you got 4 or 5 good players. Your coach might not be that great. You're going to still be hard to beat. Yeah. So I'd give basketball a 5 or 6. Where would you give lacrosse on a scale of 1 to 10?
Probably in between. We like to say that lacrosse is much like a basketball, where it's a skill-based sport, right? So a lot of it has to come down to the individual player putting in the time to develop their skills. From stick work to shooting, it's just like a basketball, and that's in that aspect, right? Where I think coaching comes into play is game planning, preparing for the other team, knowing tendencies. So when we go into a game, our staff does a great job of breaking down film of our opponents, coming in with a great game plan, knowing who their key players are, and coming up with a scheme to stop them defensively, and then offensively, how do they adjust to different things that we want to do, right? So putting our players in a good position to use the skills that they have is the part of lacrosse that I love. And so I think it's the best sport in the world to coach. You get a little bit of everything, right? Yeah. But you're right, Julian, that you need to have players to win. I mean, you do. At any sport, really, in my opinion, you need to have good players to win. And we've been so lucky here to have great players. We really have. And so it's really a lot of our job is to just put them in the right positions to be successful and keep them engaged and excited throughout the season.
Yeah. Well, a couple more questions, and I promise you I'll get to your great players and teams. I did want to ask you, you've got a lot of great players, a lot of elite players. Went through some of your All-States and All-Americans from last year. Has lacrosse suffered like other sports with the transfer portal and the COVID year? Are kids having a hard time finding their first opportunity in college like other sports?
That's an interesting question. Our sport's a little unique, and I think it's changing as we go here too. I mentioned the club aspect earlier. A lot of the recruiting happens in the club summers, just because the college coaches can go to a field and sit there all day long and see the best players in the country play at one venue. And so you'll go to these places, much like AAU basketball, I'm sure, where coaches are just sitting around the field in chairs with clipboards, and it's a pretty intense environment. Things are changing at the college level with budgeting and things like that. They're not going to be able to go to as many venues going forward. So I would say the last couple of years, I've gotten more calls from college coaches than I have in a really long time, just because they're not able to get out as much, and they're bringing that back to the high school and want the high school coaches to talk to them more. And so for our guys, we've been lucky enough that we haven't seen a drop down in that first option, that first chance. Actually, I would say that we've seen an uptick.
That's awesome.
Which is fantastic. And that could be due to a lot of things. The clubs that our guys play on, the coaching they get from that aspect, the venues that they go to play in the summer. Then the schedule that we've had the last few years have kind of gotten us a little bit on the national radar, playing some of the teams that we've played and done well against those teams. So now you have a little credibility within the program saying, okay, this is a Riverside kid. Maybe I'll give him a little extra look. It's not just, Buffalo Creek County High School, who doesn't play anybody and they might have a really good kid. Well, I've seen hundreds of those, right? So that has helped us over the years. And some of those players that we've had that have gone to the next level and been super successful. Danny Maltz, he's a national champion. He's a 5-year starter at Maryland and one of the top 10 all-time leading scorers there, right? John Schroeder, who's a starter at UVA right now. Mitch Pelkey and everything that he's done from the world of social media and playing at a high level at Ohio State and everything that he's doing for the lacrosse community. Well, that still comes back to Riverside and reflects on our program. And so I can't be more thankful for those guys that have gotten our brand out there. And now they, not knowingly doing it, but are helping the students here get recruited, because now people know about Riverside High School and the lacrosse program, and coaches call me and ask, questions, and who do you got in this class? What defenseman do you have? And so we've seen an uptick here.
Yeah. You mentioned Pelkey a couple of times. Any relation to the Pelkey soccer players that are playing now? Or?
I don't think so.
Okay.
It's more of a lacrosse family.
Yeah.
His
they got
dad
two.
was at UVA. He was, I think, the 4th leading scorer of all time there. And his older brother played in college. And Jake, he was a Stonebridge guy before Riverside opened. And then Mitch came here to Riverside and played at Ohio State. And he's all over the internet. He's the Lacrosse Network. He's got everything going on. He's got his own Pat McAfee type show.
Oh, awesome.
It's just fantastic, everything that he's doing. YouTube, and he started his own brand. So
really, I gotta try to talk him into coming and talk to me a little bit.
For sure.
He sounds fascinating. Now, you mentioned your father was a coach. What did you learn about coaching from your father? Now, I know my guess is your father by default was old school, because things were different back then. But what are some of the things you learned from him in his long career as a coach?
Well, he's definitely, he's my, the guy that I always look up to, and my role model getting into this profession. And he was a great teacher, an administrator, and a coach. And I can't speak more highly of him before I get choked up here.
Exactly.
He just, he's who I strive to be. And I learned everything from him. He was the head coach at Langley High School in the late 80s. Then went over to Madison and won the regional title in 1996. Had a great team there, and went down and lost to a unbelievable Hampton team with Ronald Curry, and it was a tough end of that season. And then he became an administrator at Chantilly High School for about 10 years. When he retired, there was an opening in McLean, and my brother and I were both teaching there and coaching football. And so Jim Patrick called my dad and was like, "Hey, do you have any aspirations getting back into it?" And he said, "Yeah, sure." So he came back for 2 more years as a head coach, and my brother and I got to coach with him. And that's just an unbelievable memory I have, being able to work with him and my brother on the same staff, and learn the way that he did things from an organization standpoint, the way he talks to his players. I wear a shirt and tie for 2 reasons on the sideline. One was my dad. He wore a shirt and tie. He always said the sideline is an extension of the classroom. And so if he wore a shirt and tie teaching in the classroom, then he's going to wear it on the sideline and help ground him and make sure that he didn't get too high or too low, that he stayed as an educator, because that's what we're around for. And then my college coach, Coach Bartlett, he wore a shirt and tie, ironically, on the sideline too. And so, you take things from everybody throughout your life and all the coaches that you've had, and try to mold that into your style. But yeah, I loved learning everything from my dad and his assistants. I remember growing up, they would all come over to the house on Sundays and have dinner with us, and then they would be watching film, and I would, be in the other room, but listening to how they interacted and game planned and talked. And so, I try to carry that over. A lot of the things that we do, a lot of the sayings that we have kind of stem from him and his staff over the years.
Yes, you go by the Joe Paterno shirt and tie look. I'm so tired of the zips. I mean, I wear zips, but every coach wears a 7. Can we just kind of, change it up a little bit, guys? Yeah. Now you mentioned your brother,
Yeah.
Nate, who set this interview up. I'm thankful. You mentioned that his basketball experience has helped him as a defensive coach in lacrosse.
Yeah.
What are some of the other things that your brother brings to the table, and some of the things you may have learned from your brother through the
Oh yeah. He's a film savant. He loves watching film, and he puts a lot of work and time into that and brings that to the field. Something I got from my dad all the time, you gain respect from your players by preparation.
Yeah.
You coming out to the field as a coach prepared, you get the respect from your players because they know that you know what you're doing and you're ready to go, and you can bring an energy to practice. And he's extremely well prepared every day. He knows what he wants to accomplish. He has a great relationship with his players. He holds them to a high standard and challenges their toughness, but for whatever reason, those guys love him. His defensive guys love him. I want to say the 2022 group, the group to beat Gonzaga down in DC. They
Awesome.
about halfway through the season, they knocked on the door and they said, "Is Coach Nate in there?" We have to call him Coach Nate because too many Coach Works gets really confusing outside on the practice field. So they're like, "Well, is Coach Nate in there?" I was like, "Well, yeah, I think so. He's in the bathroom. We'll be out in a second." So they all gather out in the hallway and then they come in, and being a basketball guy, right? They got him a pair of Jordans and they all signed the inside of the shoebox and wrote him a nice little letter and note. And I was like, man alive, that's awesome. They all pulled together to buy him a pair of Jordans. And I just thought that was one of the coolest things. And it just kind of shows his relationship with the players. But from a film standpoint, he knows we go into a game, he'll tell you every player on their team, what hand they are, what's their tendency, what are they going to do after their first dodge. He knows what's going on. And some of the things that he does, he's developed through asking questions. Because he's not a lacrosse guy, he'll watch a game and say, "Well, why do you lacrosse guys do it this way? Why wouldn't you just do it this way?" And he's developed his defense based off of that principle, and it's really worked out well.
We call it the triumph of the uncluttered mind. He doesn't know
That's
any
right.
better, so he tries new things. Coach, would you think that you would have been just as successful if you never have coached football before in your career?
That's a great question. No, I learned a lot from football, both as a player and a coach, how to organize and how to practice plan. You come to one of our practices, it's to the minute. To the point where when I was at McLean, I had a practice clock,
Yeah.
just like a football practice, and I had periods on the sheet, and it was, nope, we're moving on, and it's the buzzer's going, and now I have so many assistants in there, so I am the practice clock. I let those guys do the coaching, and I keep us on track. But that's a football thing, right? And that's paid a lot to the way that we do things, and we're big believers in the weight room. It's a football thing. We lift 2 to 3 times a week. We have a great strength coach here in the building, Greg Fenner, who does a great job with our guys as our strength and conditioning coordinator, and keeps our guys healthy and strong throughout the season. But lifting 3 days a week, all the way to the state championship game, our guys are maintaining strength, if not getting stronger as the year goes on. And I think that credits a lot to the way we play in the playoffs. And again, that's a football thing. Preparation, watching film, football, the way we break down film, we tag things, everything. That's football. And so, yeah, I don't think I would be the coach I am, or my assistants, if we weren't football guys. The way Coach Baguetta calls offense, it's football. He calls a formation and a tag, and just like it would be in a football game. So
time in practices and time in drills is from the great George Allen, Redskin coach in the 70s. I believe he pioneered that, and he was a big believer. Everything's timed.
My college coach, I go back down to VMI every now and then. I didn't play all 4 years there. I had some injuries and some grade issues that I talked to my players about. You got to be a student first if you want to play. And so, but going back and seeing him, he always asked me, "Well, hey, do you post a practice plan like I did?
Yeah.
And I remember he would always post a practice plan in the locker room so that we knew what we're going to do that day. I do it every week. I post a practice plan in there. The players look forward to seeing it so they know what's going on that day.
Yeah. Well, Coach, since you played three sports at Fairfax, you probably have tons of coaches that you remember. Maybe pick a couple of them and tell us how they influenced you and things that you learned from them that you still use today in your coaching.
Yeah. Well, Coach Joyner was my Coach Marty Joyner was my lacrosse coach. He's now the head of the officials in the Washington metropolitan area. And you know, I love playing for Coach Joyner. Back then lacrosse was a little bit different. He'd be the first to say it. It was a very physical game. It was a body check first type of game, and that's how I learned how to play. And the game has evolved since then, but I learned a lot of toughness from him because of that. You know, the way that we had a lot of football players that would play lacrosse because it was a way to go out and hit people in the spring, right? You know, and so I played with some great players in high school, and then had him and his brother, who was also a great lacrosse player, Scott Joyner. They both were brother tandem coaching, and much like my brother and I are coaches together. So that was something that was really cool and got to carry over. And I run into Marty every now and then now from the other side, right? He's an official and I'm a coach, and we have nice dialogue, and it's always good to catch up with him and build from there. And then my football coach in high school was a guy named, well, it was Tom Verbanek first,
Oh, wow.
freshman.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot about, you know, a winning culture from Tom and how things go there. And my freshman year, we were undefeated on all three levels.
Wow.
In football. And got to experience that type of environment, which is really cool. We lost in the first round of the playoffs to a really good Centerville team.
Wow.
And Nick Smith, I remember, was the quarterback there. They ran the single wing. It was Mike Williams was a running back, and they beat us at home. And I'll never forget that environment. But I remember Coach Verbanek, you know, always being very professional in the way he went about things. And so I took a lot from that, and giving the opportunities to younger players to be feeling accepted. I got a lot from him, and we bring that into our program too. I remember as a freshman getting to play in about 4 varsity games, you know, cleanup duty at the end on the football field, but knowing that I was still a part of the program from that aspect was pretty cool. And then he left to go to Westfield to start Westfield, and then we had Bill Recken came in, and Bill Recken has been around Fairfax County for a long time, coached at Chantilly, TJ, Fairfax High School, and he actually was my father's offensive coordinator at Langley and Madison. So I grew up being around Coach Recken, you know, like I said, on Sunday evenings and doing things as a family with him and his family. And then he got the job at Fairfax High School when I was a sophomore. And it was a really, you know, a family atmosphere for me to be able to play for him and see that and how much he cared about his players. I think that's the biggest thing I got from him, his love for his players. And how much he would, you know, do anything for those, for my teammates and myself. And I like to think that I kind of brought that into my coaching life too. And I still keep in touch with Coach Recken. He actually came to a game last year here with my dad, and it was great to see him. And I was down at Smith Mountain Lake. He lived down there for a little while, and with Coach Plank here, and I called him up, and he came over and joined us for an afternoon at the lake. And so to have that relationship still at you know 40 with your high school football coach, it's really special.
Yeah. I would think it'd be tough for your father not to be able to watch you play in the games and your brother play, because he's probably coaching on Friday nights. You know, looking ahead to your kids when they're old enough to play, that could probably be a tough situation. Hopefully they'll play lacrosse for Riverside, but it'd probably be a tough situation not to be able to watch your kids play.
Yeah, my dad was he made it to all of our games. I was lucky enough that he stopped coaching right when I was in high school.
Okay.
And so he could come and see me play. For the most part, if he didn't have coverage at Chantilly as an administrator. And then my brother ended up going to Chantilly when my dad was there. So he was able to see him play in high school, which was great. And then he got back into it afterwards. So I don't know if that's going to be the case for me down the line. My wife and I have those conversations, I've been doing it been a head coach. This is going to be my 15th season as a head coach. So as an assistant at Chantilly, I'm pushing 20 years of coaching. And as long as I enjoy going to practice and being around the players, I think I'm going to keep doing it. But as my boys get older, that might play into it some too, for sure. Because I want to be a part of them and what they're doing athletically, and they like running around, and they're athletic, two little athletic guys. They just started kindergarten this year, so
Oh, wow.
it's exciting.
Oh, you got some time.
I think that's down the road, but definitely something that's going to be taken into consideration for sure.
It'll be here before you know it. I take my word for it. Well, let's talk about VMI. You talked about your challenges there. What kind of kid do you recommend VMI for? What would you say? How did the VMI experience form you?
Yeah, I got a lot from VMI, and I was lucky enough. My uncle was class of '74 there, and so I knew a lot about the school going in. Like I said, I got recruited by Coach Bartlett and Coach Mick Grant, who's the head coach at Bridgewater College now. I actually ran into Coach Grant last year. He came up recruiting some of our players, so it was nice to catch up with him. And I went down, and it was a different school than it is now. We like to say it was a little bit less professional than VMI is now, from a toughness standpoint and going through different things. Over the course of the last 20 years, they've really tried to become more professional, more service academy like. They call it the West Point of the South. And so they really try to develop that way. But a kid going there, it's going to take somebody who's focused, somebody who enjoys being around other people like that. I know the lacrosse coach down there now, Coach Paper, is doing a great job recruiting this area and getting some talent down there. We have a former player, Cole Jones, who's playing there now. So I'd like to go back and visit every now and then, but it's definitely a different school than when I went. It looks different. It's built up, and a lot of money has gone into the institute, and they're doing some great things there. But it's a focused individual that goes there, and somebody who's really disciplined and has goals and aspirations. I don't think I would be the coach and person I am now if I didn't attend and go through that experience. So from an aspect of organization and leadership and the way I teach leadership to our players, that I got from VMI.
Yeah. Well, I interviewed Ramon and Damone Williams, the twins. I know you might know, they're great guys from VMI. And at one point in the interview, they were like, we don't know why we went there. So they would go visit their friends at UVA and other places, and then they had to go back home and drill. They were like, but they're both incredibly successful today. And their father wanted them to go to VMI, and I bet you it had a lot to do with their success. Well, let's talk about your time at Chantilly.
Yeah.
Now, what a great way to start as a coach. 36-1-1 as JV coach, and you win a state championship as a assistant for the varsity.
Yeah.
And also state runners up. Amazing few years there.
I was so lucky. I came home and was getting my teaching credentials from George Mason at the time. So I was a student at George Mason, an older student. But I knew I wanted to get in teaching and coaching, and that's why I kind of went that route. And I remember, saying to my father, hey, what do you think about me reaching out to Coach Broderick, who was the head lacrosse coach at Chantilly at the time, and seeing if he needs any help? And he goes, well, if you can handle going to school and doing that, then, go for it. So I did. I reached out, and I remember Coach Broderick gave me a great opportunity to come on staff, and that staff, not knowing it, was an unbelievable staff. We had Coach Broderick, who's one of the best statistically coaches in our area. He coached the girls' side for a really long time, then went over to the boys' side. I believe he's over 200 career wins.
Wow.
I think last year might have been his last season. I don't think he's coaching this year, but learned a lot about how to delegate from Coach Broderick and all these things that you need to be a coach, but delegation is huge. You can't do everything. So I learned a lot about delegation, but the assistants on that staff were incredible. Bob Waters, when I got there, he was the head JV coach. I was his assistant. Well, Bob ended up going to Paul VI and had a great career as the head coach there. Dave Bagetta, who's now our offensive coordinator here, but was a head coach at Robinson, South County, Herndon for years. Very successful and a great teacher of the game. He was the varsity assistant on that staff too. And so I got to learn from Dave and everything. And he ends up being a groomsman in my wedding. So, and then myself, who ended up going to TJ and then becoming a head coach. I mean, you had 4 very successful head coaches on that staff, and then great assistants too. Kevin O'Connor, a long assistant there at Chantilly. So it was a great experience. Learned how to coach and manage players with high talent levels, which we had there at Chantilly. We had some great players, and got to see what it takes to go the distance, and going 20-0 and winning a state title there, and then getting so close the next year was a really awesome experience.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a great place to develop as a coach while you're winning. Now you go to TJ now. TJ's interesting because it's not a community school. So you got kids who are commuted in. They don't have as much time, probably. Not the easiest place to experience success. So anyone who wins at TJ can definitely coach. Did you know exactly what kind of head coach you wanted to be? Was that an adjustment being a head coach for the first time?
Oh, it was definitely an adjustment. I think at that time I was probably the youngest head coach in the northern region. So I look back on some pictures of me as a first-year head coach. I probably could have been a player. I don't think I had a hair on my face. I'm definitely not the gray hair on my face. So, but yeah, it was definitely an eye-opening experience. I remember going. So it was interesting there too. That goes back to football. I was coaching football there at the time, and under Ken Kincaid, who's a great friend and coached there. And an opening happened. I knew Mr. DeRose, the AD, and he asked me to apply, and I said, okay, well, this might be a great opportunity for me. And so I took the shot and I got the job. And I remember going into the coach's office at the time, but it was like a storage room, and I'm like, all right, now what? What do I do now? So I just started counting things in the storage room, counting jerseys, counting equipment, and like organizing things. And then that started triggering things. I started writing notes down, and then I leaned on my buddy Dave Bagetta, and I would call him, I think, every day on the drive home. Now that I called the triangle of death. I lived in Fairfax City. I drove to McLean, then to TJ, then back down to Fairfax every day for 2 years, because I was teaching at McLean at the time and coaching at Thomas Jefferson, and I think I would call him every day on the way home. I probably wore him out. So, but I learned a lot about that. He was a young coach, and I learned a lot about ways to do things. He would talk me off the ledge sometimes, and it was a perfect time for me to be there because we had some talent, and those TJ kids played so hard and were so focused. I remember I would tell them something, and it was like they soak it up like a sponge, and it was a great environment to be around. And they just loved playing, and they were so focused and wanted to learn so much about everything. And it was a great group to coach, and we did a great job there. My staff, I actually coached with one of my high school teammates, Mike Britt, Ted Britt Ford, and all that. All the car dealerships. Mike was a player, high school All-American, played at UVA. And then so he came over there with me. We were two super young guys coaching these TJ kids, and ended up upsetting some teams and making to the regional tournament probably for the first time in 20 years at TJ. It was they had some good teams about a decade before us there, and then had some downtimes, and we came in. And then the next year we had a really pretty good team, and almost upset Oakton in the first round of the regional tournament. I think we lost by a goal in the last couple seconds. We were the 4 seed, and Oakton was the 1 seed. And yeah, I had a great experience there. And then the coaching turnover at McLean happened, and then I was able to go to where I taught, and being in the building is a big difference.
Yeah. Well, one of the common themes of your career is you've had some great assistants working with you and alongside of you. What is the key to recruiting assistants, and what did you learn about that in your journey as a head coach?
A lot of it's luck, Julian, to be honest with you, and timing. Dave always tells me timing in life is everything sometimes, and guys available certain times, and where you are and where they are at the time in their life. But I can't thank my assistants enough. There's no way that, the record that you read off earlier and the accomplishments that we've had, I say we because there's no way that it would happen without all those guys. I mean, there's no chance. I mean, I've had unbelievable assistants. At McLean, Jimmy Caden comes to mind. Jimmy is he coaches at Langley now as a wrestling assistant and a football assistant and a lacrosse assistant. Jimmy is just he's a student of the game. He's a face-off specialist. He's organized. Jimmy came out here to Riverside with me, and we were at McLean together. Kevin Burke, Kevin Burke was in my wedding as a groomsman. Met him at McLean when I took over, and he came down to talk to me, and just one of the best guys I know in my life. He was a counselor at McLean. When I opened up Riverside, I convinced him to come out here and move his family out to Loudoun County, and he did. I mean, talk about loyalty there, right? And he came out here, and now he's up in the admin building in Loudoun County, him and his wife, and they live out in Round Hill now. They have 3 great kids, and I couldn't thank him enough for everything he did for us. And he was a Robinson guy. He actually went to Robinson, played for Tom Tufts there at Robinson, and tremendous athlete in his own right. Went to Hampton-Sydney, and I mean, I can go down the list. I'm sure there's guys I'm forgetting off the top of my head, and I've had so many over the years. But anybody that's been with me has just been such an asset to the way we do things, and have really embraced our motto of all in, and being all in on and off the field, and doing everything that it takes for kids. And it really comes down to that.
Yeah. Well, let's go before we get to Riverside. Let's go quickly to McLean.
Yeah.
People talk about how wealthy Riverside is. McLean is one of the wealthiest and most powerful school districts in the country. It's amazing the level of wealth those kids have. I find that they're great kids. And you're coach of the year 1 year, won the Liberty 1 year. What was that experience like? Was it nice to get back to a community school? And also, the Liberty district is so much fun because those rivalries go a long way back. Yeah.
That's so it's interesting you brought that up. When I first came here to Riverside, I remember telling my students, I'm like, this is such a wealthy area, and you guys, but this is new money out here. It's not like McLean. That's that old money.
Yeah, it's a whole different kind of money.
Yeah, that's a different ball game, and they all laugh about it. But yeah, those kids are great kids in McLean. They're smart, motivated kids too, and the community is a fantastic community, and the fact that I was teaching in the building there, I had coached football there for a couple of years. I got to know the kids. And then I remember having the opportunity to apply for the job and getting it. It was so great because I could be in the building, I could build relationships, and then start building a program. And what a great feeder program they have there with the McLean Youth Lacrosse program. And then it carries over to the high school. And what a neat atmosphere. If you've never been to McLean, for anybody listening, it's very much like Riverside. We're surrounded by the community.
Yeah.
It's just a neat little stadium there with the
Yeah.
trees, and like it was a fun place to coach. And the rivalries in the Liberty District at that time, my staff, the guys that are still with me from then, and even reminiscing about those times there, those are some of the best games I think I've ever. I mean, everybody was good. Yorktown, tremendous. Fairfax at the time, great. Madison, fantastic. Stonebridge, these are all in the Liberty District at the time. Oh geez, we played Woodson at the time. They were so good. We had Chantilly on our schedule, South County. I mean, every game was like a goal, like deterring one way or the other, and it was just game in and game out, the grind of coaching there, and those the high level of lacrosse. I don't know if the Northern region has gotten back to that as it was there at that time between, 2013-ish to 2015, 2016. That was some really good lacrosse at that time. Robinson with Jack Roulette. I mean, there are guys that are just the older Maltz brothers at Stonebridge. I mean, it was just the talent level through the roof. And so that made it fun in its own. Not to mention the talent that we had at McLean at the time. I mean, we were good. Justin Gibbons, Alex Morris. We had defenseman Jordan Cole, who was a 3-sport athlete who ended up going to Army and was a captain on their lacrosse team. I remember talking to during his recruitment. I was making a lacrosse highlight for Jordan to start helping his recruiting. But I said, in the meantime, here's his football highlights. And Coach Alberici called me on the walk out, and he goes, well, when can we get Jordan up here? I was like, Coach, I haven't seen any lacrosse film yet. I can when I get back into the office. He goes, no. I saw him play football. That's all I need to see. I mean, just unbelievable kids. I mean, Jordan, top of the line character kid. And we had some great ones there. Michael Dolan in the goal. I mean, I'm sure I'm forgetting guys there too. We had a face-off guy who was tremendous. Those guys were just great. And I got to learn how to handle talent again as a head coach, because when you have that much talent, sometimes it's managing talent. Yeah. And we were able to manage that talent and win a lot of games.
Coaching as an underdog and coaching talent is not the same thing. You can be good at one and not the other. So it's you're right. It's a different thing. Let's go to Riverside. Now you talked about the decision with Doug Anderson, who I played Little League football with.
Oh, fantastic!
And I used to referee with Matt Oblas. So
wow.
Yeah. So I go way back with. They didn't know me yet. I introduced myself to them at the orientation last year. But anyway, your second year at Riverside, you go undefeated and you win a state championship. When did you know you had a state championship level team that year?
I knew after that first year we were going to be pretty good because we didn't have any seniors, so we returned everyone, right? Mm-hmm. So I knew at the attack level, the offense, we had a lot of talent. Taylor Musa, who ends up being the all-time leading goal scorer in the history of the state of Virginia at any level, private or public, when he graduated.
Wow.
I mean, tremendous. I don't think that record may never be broken. I think it was like 274 career goals. And a lot of times we're pulling him at halftime because we had some lopsided victories that year. And so having him, and then Danny Maltz, who ends up going to Maryland and is, top 10 scorer of all time at University of Maryland, national champion. And then Mitchell Pelkey, who is one of the most athletic attackmen that I've had. Great player from behind the cage and able to distribute the ball, and a great competitor. I knew that we had a chance there. And then on top of that, because they were sophomores at the time, and we had 3 sophomores starting to attack. And then we had Taylor's older brother, Chad Musa, and those guys that were now seniors that made the choice to come to Riverside. So that plays a lot into it too, because those guys could have stayed at their schools. They didn't have to come here. They had the choice whether to stay and finish or to come to Riverside. and they chose to come to Riverside. So
Why? Why'd they come? Why did they do that? Why did they choose to come?
I don't know, and that says a lot about their character. I think they wanted to. I think they knew the talent in that group, and they wanted to win. And so now you have guys that wanted to win that are in the senior class that have had the choice to come. Talk about leadership. They came every day. They had one goal in mind. That was it. They were going to win every game they went into and do whatever it takes to win. We joke with the teams now that we're soft as a coaching staff. We were really tough on that group. It was we held them to a really high standard, and we pushed them to the level or to the brink physically and mentally, and they met it every step of the way. That was a tough group of kids, and great senior leadership with that group. I think I knew we were probably going to win it. It's a little hidden story. We were practicing the playoffs. It was really hot, and we were having a competitive practice, and guys were getting after it a little bit. And there was a little bit of a scuffle in practice. And I remember at that moment, I was like, this team has the edge that they need to go. Obviously not promoting scuffles in practice or anything like that. But, yeah, if you've been around athletics enough, sometimes that's the competitiveness, and they came together at the end, and everything was good. It never carried over to anything, and they hugged it out. But they wanted to win that bad that it mattered that much to them that a practice in late May turns into something like that where, we're undefeated. There's no reason to get that fired up. And they did because they wanted to win that badly. I knew we were going to do it that after that, I think.
Did you ever see the movie North Dallas 40?
I think I have.
Well, there's a part in that movie where the Tom Landry character, they're at practice and a fight breaks out and he's right, we're ready now. So
yeah, okay, there you go. Very similar, yeah.
Exactly. So the next year, and not to pick on you, Coach, but if you're going to coach here at Riverside, you have to win every year. You had to be a little disappointed because you just mentioned that you had 3 attackers coming back.
Yep.
And they were sophomores that first year the school opened. So was it a little disappointing that year where you didn't win it?
It was. We referenced that 2018 year constantly as part of the program. And that's not a knock on the 2018 senior class. That was a great class too. We got into a little bit of injury trouble that year, especially towards the end of the season, going into the playoffs. Some of our better players had some tweaks. I know Danny was suffering from a little bit of a leg injury, and Taylor Musa, I think, got sick. And there were some other little injuries along the way, and it started becoming a little concerning. And we were playing well enough to keep winning, but as we got deeper and deeper, those injuries started piling up. Those guys were still playing, but they weren't 100%. And because they weren't 100%, we weren't practicing at the level we needed to practice at. Yeah. It wasn't necessarily a game thing, but it was a practice thing. And so we took a lot from that season, and we lost a close game to a great Dominion team. Coach Lenati and those guys over there, they do a great job. And that started turning into a little bit of a natural rivalry between us and them for years. Going back and forth and having battles and tight games. They had a lot of talent. We did too. And they beat us, and they did a great job beating us that day. And I remember looking at my assistant saying we need to change some things. And we put our brains together. There was a lot of work in that offseason. How can we change things to be better late in the year? And we changed the formula. We decided, we're not going to go crazy hard every single day, like I mentioned about that 2017 team. We were probably too hard on those guys at times from just a physical standpoint. The practice plans were too intense for too long. And so we started building in off days, scheduled off days. We started building in getting in the weight room throughout the season and taking some of the stress off the legs and things like that we didn't do in the past. And we started learning that we were getting stronger and stronger as the year went on.
Mm.
And so that 2018 team, they had a great year. They went to the state semifinal. I mean, there are teams that would die to do that. But they, without knowing it, helped pave the way for everybody now, because we had to come up with a new way to do things to be successful and to carry that out throughout a long season. And so they've had just as much impact not winning a state title than winning one that year. So we came back to that 2019 team with a new way to look at how to do things. And when the playoffs hit, we were like a machine. It was really fun to watch.
Yeah. Well, so it was an important stepping stone. Let me just skip ahead quickly. We'll touch the other ones too, but let's
Yeah.
skip ahead to the last season we just finished.
Yeah.
23-24. You lost to Freedom early, class 6, but Loudoun County. You lost to St. Albans, and then you pretty much cruised the rest of the year. You had a close game with Independence. 10-8 in the cross is a very close game, I guess, right? A two-goal game is a close. But let me I got some of the players off the All-American list or the All-State list. Drew Mazoka, he's an attacker. I believe he's senior this year. Zach Ward, face-off. When you're face-off, you still do other things when you're not facing off, right?
Yes and no. So those guys graduated last year.
Oh, they did? Okay.
Yeah, they're at college now. Drew Mazzocco was a state player of the year. And then Zach's down at Drew's at Vassar College in New York, great academic school. And then Zach's down at Jacksonville University. But he was classified, we call him a FOGO, or a face-off get-off. And that's really just a specialist. He'd go out. Zach was talented enough and athletic enough to stay on the field and do other things. But facing off every time gets pretty tiring. So it's a very physical, demanding position. And so he would face off, transition the ball down to the offensive end, and then come off the field.
Well, that's interesting. Well, then there's Sebastian Katana.
Yeah.
I always see his football helmet down the street here. He's my neighbor. Yeah. Yeah, he's a good football player. I saw him play last year. Keegan Smith, a defender. Danny Rice, attacker. Connor Kenworthy, a defender. You had a lot more players on the second team. So you had, I don't want to shortchange people, but talk about your season a little bit. You lost to great Freedom early. They went deep into the Class 6 playoffs. St. Albans, of course, a traditional power. And then a close losing to Independence would have been a disaster because they're one of our natural rivals, being a newish school in the area. But talk about last season a little bit.
Yeah. That was a great senior group. Some of those guys you named off, and they'd been around for a while and they've seen the success and knew what it took. Going into last year as a senior year for, Danny and Connor and Drew and some of the Griffin and goal, Zach, those guys, they know what it took to go to the top of the mountain. And so they were fantastic leaders. They were able to take those younger guys under their wings and develop them and say, okay, hey, if it's a bad day at practice, let's come back tomorrow and make it a better day. And that's how they were every single practice. And it was awesome to watch. They were great. We lost to Freedom over there. We didn't play our best. We did it. It was a down night. We just did not play well. And Freedom was a great team. And they played well. And I remember coming in the next day and coach is kind of looking at me in the office like, all right, well, what are we going to do? Like, well, first of all, we're allowed to lose a game.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. We lost to a good team and we didn't play well. But we need to go back to our core values: accountability, integrity, and toughness. And talk to them about those, because those will carry you through a tough time, get you back on track, get you back on the path to where we want to go. So we brought the team together and just calmly talked to them about that. I said exactly how I'm talking to you. We lost the game. We did not play well. They're a great team. They played well, and we lost. All right. That's not the end of the season. We got to go back to work, but we did some things that we didn't do well. And we need to focus on those things we didn't do well and get better at them, or this is a useless loss, right? We want to make it a useful loss. So got back on track. Our next game was down in Charlottesville at St. Anne's Belfield against Stab.
Oh, Stab.
Who's
Oh,
a great team.
yeah,
School,
absolutely.
they had multiple Division I players all over the field. And I'm like, oh boy, let's not turn this into a 2-game skid, So we go down there on a Saturday, and it's also Stab's 50th anniversary.
Mm.
So they have food trucks everywhere. The place is packed with alumni and recruits and all. I'm like, oh boy. So we get on the field, they're out there, they're huge. I'm like, oh boy. But for whatever reason, our kids were focused. The time we got off the bus, the time we blew the whistle, they were focused and played a great game and beat them down there. And that was the confidence that we needed to get back on the train. So, they took that loss against Freedom. They learned from it. They were mature. A lot of those guys had been in varsity big situations before. That senior class had played at Gonzaga and won that game over there, and they knew what it took to come back and go through adversity and things like that. So they led us the rest of the way. It was great. It was a great story, and played some great games. That Independence game, it's tough to play a team 3-4 times in a season, and I think that was the third time we played them. And they're going to give everything they can in an elimination type environment. And so they got up for it, and they have a lot of talent there. And I know that's going to be a tough game for us this year too. But we were able to make plays at the end of the game and get out of there with the win, survive and advance, as they say in March Madness. And it's the same way with us. And survive, advance, move on to the next one, and that's what we did, and kept playing well throughout the playoffs.
Yeah, you kind of cruise the rest of the way. Now, Coach, when we talked about the first state championship, we talked about the most recent. If you look at it on paper, it looks drama free. You just win every year, but obviously, those years are layered with stories and how things came together. Is it easier to feel like it's nowhere near as easy as it looks when you look back on your 6 titles?
Yeah, it's a grind. It's a grind, and that's why you have to find ways to keep things fresh and fun for the kids. But it's definitely a grind. I mean, I think one of the biggest, metaphorical punches to the gut was that COVID year.
Yeah.
Because we developed a really that 2020 team, and I say it to this day, and it's funny because every team says, their team was the best team, right?
Every coach I have interviewed said their 2020 team would have been the best team.
I'm telling you, it was unbelievable. That group was so good.
Yeah,
I mean, we had, we were 3 deep at every position. Like, I mean, it was just so good. All those, that 2017, 2019 group, like those guys always come back and are like, Coach, we would have killed that 2020 team. I was like, God, guys, I don't know about that. I mean, we had, it was unbelievable. But that was a punch in the gut because, you've been working so hard and you knew you had a really good team. And then that happens and you lose the season, and that senior class, it was like there was no like going through the season, developing relationships with those seniors, and then a nice send-off to college, right? It was like we were at practice one day, and then the next day I collected their stuff out of the window of their car, and then I never saw them again. And it's really hard, as a coach, when you develop relationships with kids throughout the course of an off season and 3 years prior, to not see them finish their journey is really tough emotionally. So having to come back from that into that 2021 year was a challenge. And I remember we got stickers for our helmets for those seniors. I think we had 10 seniors of 2020 and put 10 over 2020 on our back of our helmets, and we talked about that a lot, that you wanted to play because you never knew when that last time could be. So you wanted to cherish every moment. And that 2021 team was really talented. And we had some great leaders in that team, including Carter Ash, who is at the Naval Academy right now. I can't believe I forgot to mention Will, his dad earlier in the interview. Will Ash has been a assistant since we opened. He was our offensive coordinator for a while, but kind of took a step back the last couple of years to watch Carter play. And Carter's gonna, serve our country here as a graduate from the Naval Academy. He was a state player of the year, high school All-American. Couldn't ask for a better senior, him, Nick Callis, some of his teammates, to come out of COVID with. I was really lucky to have those guys to be able to come out of COVID with. But yeah, Will, Kristen Ash, who's our head girls coach, that's a family atmosphere, having them around every spring and being a part of what we're doing. Kristen does an unbelievable job with the girls team. And like I said, Will is one of my best friends and been with me since we opened here a decade ago. So yeah, he's great. One of the best coaches I've ever been around.
And in 22 and 23, state championships, any moments of note? I mean, it's when you win them every year. Usually when I interview coaches, I will focus on a one state championship year or two. You're hard to interview because there's so many years players and coaches to focus on. But what about those 2 years were memorable?
Special teams also. The 2022 year, I'll always remember on those rings, we have a red R on the top of the ring. And it's because we wore red jerseys in DC against Gonzaga. And that was that's one of the best games on my list of wins and, big wins that I've had. And that one was a special one. I don't know. I'm sure Gonzaga is a athletic power in all sports, but in lacrosse, they are a top tier athletic lacrosse school. I mean, they're sending 10 to 20 kids a year to go play in college at any level. It's just tremendous. So we show up. I remember getting off the bus and some of the Gonzaga parents asking our assistant coaches, oh, Riverside, where's that? And we're like, oh, it's out in Leesburg. Where's Leesburg? Oh, it's about an hour west, oh, out in the country. Oh, we go out to wineries out there sometimes. Like, oh, nice. Yeah. Oh, well, I'm glad you guys could come here. They're very nice, but no clue who we were. Yeah. And they're like, man, aren't these facilities really nice here at Gonzaga? I was like, yeah, it's really cool. Our players were like in awe. They were like, this is awesome. We're playing in DC in between two buildings. The parking garage is underneath the field. It's just so cool. So the game starts and our guys are like in warm up. I could tell they were like, let's go. We didn't come here just to play. We came here to win. And we played. I've never seen a team play harder than that group ever. I mean, guys, I tell the story now to some of our players. Adam Huffnagel comes to mind as never played lacrosse before, comes out, ends up playing as a defensive midfielder for us as a junior in that game. Is so tired. He's coming off the field, and then we're like, oh, there's a turnover. You got to go back on. And he is dry heaving, almost throwing up, running back on the field, to chase down a play, make the play. I mean, it was Nate Koch comes to mind. He's whole body cramp. About 4 minutes to go in the game. It's tied. And he's like, coach, just give me 30 seconds so I can get back in. It was just everything you could imagine as a coach. It was like a movie scene on the sideline. It was just so awesome to see high school kids push their bodies to that extreme. We're not as deep as Gonzaga. We got guys that aren't coming off the field in a lacrosse game, running up and we don't have subs. This is the way it is. And guys that, come to mind, Benny Kassoff in that game was a state player of the year for us here. He's at Gettysburg College now playing probably one of the best games as a midfielder I've ever seen anybody have. He was unbelievable. It's like he couldn't get tired. He's running up and down the field scoring. I think he had 3 goals, 3 assists. We turned the ball over in overtime, and he sprints back on defense, intercepts the ball that I thought was going to be the end of the game, sprints back down, leads a fast break for us to score the game winner, because in lacrosse, overtimes, it's sudden victory. So just that was that game of that 2022 year was the game. It was just so special to see those guys do that and have that. They'll never forget that moment that night. So
What was special about the 23 team?
that team, again, they were a professional group. They really cared about each other from a professional aspect. They knew how to work hard. They knew how to come to work every day. We had an unbelievable player on that team, Chase Paschuk, who's now down at Jacksonville University. He was state player of the year. He actually beat Taylor Muse's single season goal record here at Riverside. He scored 86 goals in a season. But that group was just as talented, especially on the defensive end. They were just so good at doing the little things, and Chase and those seniors on that team brought those younger guys along. We had a lot of freshmen playing that year that are now juniors. Jacob Stromberg and Nate Woodward, those guys were freshmen, and to throw freshmen into the fire is really hard if you don't have some really good senior leadership. And so that's what I remember about that group. It was a young group. They were hungry, and those seniors taught them how to compete and practice and win.
Yeah. Well, Coach, when you think about 2025, and you've done this for 20 years, and you've done it at a very high level for the last 7, 8 years, do you know exactly how your team will look this year, or is it a process? You know, it's September now. The kids are lifting weights. They're playing club maybe, and then you go through winter training. Do you know what your team's going to look like next year, or that kind of evolves through the off season and into the season?
It definitely evolves. Since I came out here in Riverside, one of the things that we have is that we don't have any captains. We never assign captains ever. Even in season, we don't assign captains, because we believe that if we teach leadership, a captain will rise to the top. The person who ends up being the natural team leader will become the team leader. What is a captain anyway, but somebody who goes out and just takes a coin toss? I mean, so we just assign that right before the game. Hey, you're a captain tonight, you're a captain. But the true captains are those that are developed in the off season, like you just were talking about. So we'll see who steps up now in the off season in the course of workouts and waking up at 6:30 in the morning to come in here and put that work in the off season that we need, and that they know that they need to go into June again. It's a long trek to get to June. And so we try to pace ourselves as coaches. We try to make the off season as fun as possible, but still knowing that they need to get the work in to put their bodies in position to go through that. We have probably the toughest schedule this year that we've ever had, as I stated earlier. And we try to tell our guys that so they're prepared mentally to prepare their body physically for that stretch. Because you need to have that maturity to realize that it's a tough journey to get to what you want to get to by the end. I know, and we are excited to be very defensive heavy. We only graduated our goalie last year, Griffin Ambule.
That's incredible.
We returned our entire defense, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
Because now that we have a veteran group in front of a young goalie, who's a sophomore. Jack Clark is next in line there to step between the pipes, and he's extremely talented. And to have a veteran group in front of them, we're really excited about that. With Keegan Smith and Sam Schroeder, Sebastian Quintana playing as a long stick midfielder. We return a lot of other great players on that defensive end. And so we're excited to see that group come together. And then offensively, graduating our entire attack group is going to be a tough place to replace. With Danny Rice and Drew and Porter Lassane all moving on to college and having to find some guys to score some goals and replace that goal production from last year. That's something that we definitely need to develop in the offseason. And hopefully some of those juniors that I mentioned played in that 2023 year are now veterans, and they'll be able to produce for us. Jacob Stromberg, Nate Woodward, Andrew High, Grayson Olno. These guys have been around the program, and it's now their turn to have that, them being out in front and them taking that responsibility to carry on their tradition.
Yeah. Well, Coach, I'm really excited to come watch you play. It's, talking to you has gotten me excited to see how this, especially the matchups against some of those private schools. And
Oh yeah,
love to see you play the Independence, a nice crosstown rival. Last question, Coach. Your wife is in the building. I met her earlier as we were setting up. Brittany, what is the key to an effective and successful and enduring sports wife? What is she? Brittany's in the building. You guys are there together. How can a wife like Brittany support the coach? Because it has got to be tough having a husband or a spouse generally with such a passion, all-consuming passion. It obviously takes a lot of time.
She is the most amazing woman on this planet. First of all, to be a mother of twins, that's a whole separate group of women that is just it's incredible to see them. And she is no exception. She might be at the top of that list. She's an incredible mother. She's an incredible wife. She's so supportive and buys into everything that we are about as a family and is there for me when I have a tough game or a tough week and is understanding of that. She coached for a while too, out at Centerville. She was in McLean. She coached track, so she understands the dynamics of coaching. She's been with me since I started at McLean High School, is when we started dating. So it was she's been with me through it all, and I couldn't imagine anybody else to be a rock for me. She understands it all. She getting emotional again. God, I couldn't ask for anybody else to be in a partner and at my side all the time. Love having her bring the boys to the games. They run around there, they run out on the field, and she makes that important too, to make sure that they can come and see me as much as possible during the season, because again, sometimes I'm getting home and they're already in bed. And so we try to balance it the best we can. And especially with the boys in kindergarten now, it's even less time. So we try our best to have myself spend as much time with them in season that I can, and her bring them around really helps too. But they're great and they love lacrosse, and they're always in the backyard throwing the ball around now, which is fun to see. And I couldn't ask for more supportive wife. So Brittany is amazing. Love you. Thank you. And we'll move into this next season with her.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome.
It's awesome having her in the building to, it makes communication a lot easier too. I forgot to add that part, having her here and to be able to walk down to her office and say, oh my gosh, I need to sit down for a second, or hey, let me bounce this off you, or even logistics of life, to be able to be in the same space and be able to communicate that makes things a lot easier too.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Coach. I got a feeling your kids are being brainwashed towards lacrosse. I don't give them much chance in any other sport now that they're fully immersed in the Riverside culture. Well, look, Coach, this has been great. Sorry I kept you longer than you promised. This has been great. I'll be at the football game tomorrow. If you get a chance, I know you're probably busy, but I'd love to shake your hand and meet you in person if possible. But really appreciate you taking time to talk to me. This has been an amazing journey through an incredibly successful coaching career, and with hopefully many more state championships to come.
I hope so. I hope so. Thank you so much, Julian. I love being on. It's a great podcast, great program, and hopefully more coaches kind of take advantage of it and join you. I think this is a great way to get what we do all the time out there to the public too. I couldn't thank you enough for putting this together. It's great.
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, I learned so much, and coaches have so much history, especially the ones that played in the area as well. I mean, the names that you spun off today are names that we may have forgotten about. We talk about Dick Adams, we talk about Verbanek, but you mentioned so many names. Like, oh, I forgot about him. And so coaches have this history. So I think it's important to talk to both the present coaches and also the retired coaches. And I've talked to many of
Great.
the.
I mean, some of those coaches too. I didn't even forgot. I mean, legends that I've like looked up to as a coach. Tom Tufts, I mentioned it. Robinson. I mean,
Yeah.
he might be the best of all time in this area. Nobody talks about Tom anymore. Earl Brewer at Langley, he has probably over 400 wins on his career and 4 state titles. I mean, there's just been Coach Fitzgerald from Woodson High School. I mean, there are guys that have just been around forever and that have done a great job. And I just hope to be able to follow in their footsteps and the things that they've done. So,
Well, I think you're on the verge of passing everyone, coach. But we can always help more kids. Teach them things, set them on the right path. So as we said before, wins are great, state championships are great, but all the things our coaches do, it's amazing. As I always like to say, coaches, they may not always make a lot of money, but they're richly rewarded in the influence they have on their players and their kids. We never forget our coaches. I interviewed my coach, one of the first interviews I've done, 300 or 400, but I coached Bob McCagg, who played at UVA. I went to UVA as well, but he coached me at Robinson in basketball, and interviewing him was just a joy because we had so many things to talk about, and so the effect of coaches have on kids is immeasurable. But well, look, Coach, again, this has been great. Hopefully we can meet in person really soon.
Yeah. Fantastic. Come on out to a game, as we say here at Riverside. Roll side.
Roll side. Yeah, we'll get them tomorrow night, Coach.
All righty. Talk to you soon.
Everybody.